Hello, this is Dr. Mike. This is my CIS 2642 pen testing class, and this is a look at Topic 10, which at the time of this recording is from our textbook, Chapter 7, on exploiting network vulnerabilities. It's a pretty broad topic. The chapter itself goes over a lot of aspects. We'll probably do a demo with SMB exploits, which is a really big one, but realize there's a lot of different ways to approach this, and we'll see here. I won't go over the whole chapter, of course. We will look at the summary here when we're done. But for now, though, we will look at, of course, this graphic again. So during our recon phase, we got a lot of information. Specifically, when it comes to networking, it's going to be ports and services. So, and not just that, what version number they're running. So our port number and our version number is going to be a huge one right there. And we will use this to establish possible attacks. Now, of course, we would look for vulnerabilities for those versions. But if there's no vulnerability, if there is a running, it's still possible to run an exploit against certain types of services. And that takes a little more craft, a little more work. And it's going to depend upon what access you have. If you're internal, maybe you already have it internal and you're doing some pivoting, or maybe you're coming directly from the outside. So anyways, we'll take a look at what the chapter briefly talks about here. There are ways to approach VLANs and maybe see if you can hop off the VLAN. And VLANs are commonly used, a virtual LAN, to maybe separate the DMZ. If it's being used to separate a DMZ from the internal network, it might be possible to use some sort of double tagging. And I'm going to go, this is the way to go ahead and strip out the tag and use this. Big one too is also DNS poisoning. What we want to do is we want to control the outgoing network traffic, and maybe we can point to the DNS and bounce it maybe to a website that we have set up, maybe running like B for some sort of exploitation framework, or with exploit on it, or just a simple phishing website to gather credentials. And so it's possible to always look for DNS. Also, DNS is a great way to also see if you can also use DNS scanning, DNS tools, look for weaknesses in DNS. Sometimes that gets overlooked. And this is definitely a network vulnerability, network attack thing. And there's some cache poisoning, look at that. Man in the middle again, we want to insert ourselves, we want the traffic to come to us so we can either use it to modify the traffic and maybe return certain things back. Man in the middle is definitely going to be used, specifically with DNS, it's a good one, but it also can be used with Wi-Fi. So keep that in mind. Not all network is, of course, wired network, internet traffic. And we'll see here, there are ways to approach your attack. It could be if you're at the site, your target site, and you have access to their Wi-Fi network. That could be a huge deal. So ARP spoofing is another way to do man in the middle. Readdressing traffic. And there's some examples here of this. So replaying relay attacks. If you can capture current traffic, maybe with a Wireshark, for example, and see if you can resend it, maybe modify the traffic. So maybe the credentials, use to replicate them, and or modify or you get the valid credentials from that. So it is sort of a form of a man-in-the-middle attack. Keep that in mind. This is a tough one here, which you might be able to commonly call SSL stripping or TLS stripping. This one's tough to do. If you pull out TLS and it goes back to the client, most times the browser is going to throw a hissy fit, which it should, or even the mobile web app, whatever. So it still might have a place in your attack, and it's going to be very, very specific though. So realize that if you have anything going to the client that you've modified, there's always a chance endpoint protection or a modern web browser will block that traffic, and then will raise suspicion. So again, we'll go over that there. Network access control bypassing, DHCP, look for that. Broadcasting listeners, things like that. So we're looking for those underlying network protocols that we use to manage a network. Maybe be able to go and leverage those too. DDoS and stressors, again, be totally honest, is very rare, but it's possible in your in your statement of work and your rules of engagement, maybe a DDoS against a specific service is possible. It could be a full red team attack where you come in with everything you got, no holes barred. So don't discount that. Just make sure that before you sit in with a DDoS, any kind of denial of service attack, go back and review your rules of engagement. So you don't want to break those. Windows service attacks, definitely a big one. NetBIOS, SMB, that's a huge one. I think Eternal Blue is based off of this. Especially if it's facing the internet and it has those ports open, definitely want to raise your radar on that. And even if you can't get the version, it's possible even try an exploit out. Mentioned before in the Zen and pen testing, a lot of times you might just need to go and give an exploit a try, a well-known exploit, well-known attack. But a lot of times you might be able to get the version number off. Could be web app firewall in place. So it's blocking those version numbers coming over from Nmap. So keep that in mind. And there's a NetBIOS attack there. We'll probably kick this off. I'll maybe do a demo with this one, definitely with NetLab. We'll look at, of course, using Metasploit for that one. So important thing is understanding these services and the protocols they're running. So it's always have a good reference somewhere. This is a good one. This is well-known ports. It's possible if someone's running something encrypted. Is there an unencrypted version of that could be used? And sometimes you'll see HTTP port open, for example, even though the main website's an HTTPS. Now, a lot of times what will happen is you'll have, it'll bounce into HTTPS. If you send over a port 80 request, it should bounce automatically. Still though, if there's a port 80 server up somewhere, maybe there's a login page. It's maybe worth trying to scan that IP down without actually hitting web traffic, but scan the IP down, that IP address down, and see if maybe you can directly crawl the HTTP. You're looking for that one missed page. Maybe someone has a login page they missed, and that login page has possibly can be monitored or just tried to attack it. So. Realize some services have multiple channels, like FTP. So it's possible that you be attacking one, but maybe you can sniff the other one. Look for unencrypted TCP, like Telnet, over port 23. So look for any unencrypted traffic. That should be a huge deal. That's something definitely you would put in and report back to your client. You're not using secure traffic for this. You highly suggest to secure that up somehow. And also you're going to run across, SMB is a good one. Microsoft Directory Services, that's a huge one right there. 445 is when we use the attack. We'll look at attack tools probably like Hydra for that one. Our login processes is used for Unix. Sometimes they're open. And also you're going to run across some services you have no idea what they're for. So, and that's totally common. You might have no idea what a cPanel is, but it's open. So that means you got to go back into, yes, and part of your recon process is research. It should be called recon research, because you're not sure what this is there a vulnerability for it? And of course, you don't get stuck into analysis paralysis. If it looks like it's not going to be of any use, and I've seen some really weird ports or some really weird services open, that I just had to basically, again, document everything. Tell myself that I don't think there's anything that's going to come from this service. There's there's no open, no old or new or any CVEs. There's no, just Googling that service, any exploits, nothing comes up. But Halo, red versus blue. So, anyways, realize you might have run the services, you have no idea what they're for. But so that means you need to go back to recon and do a little bit of homework on them. But don't get stuck in analysis paralysis. Sometimes you got to pin it and move on. So, anyways, that's probably a big one right there. Is realize you're going to come across a lot of stuff, and also realize if there's a web app firewall or like a FireEye in front of the system, you might get no results back from Nmap. However, we know that they're running a web server. So what we means is the web app firewall is blocking everything, or it shows everything open with no version. And so that sort of muddles, and that's what it's supposed to muddle the scanning. And so sometimes you might need to go in and just look for most commonly used services and try to hit those with other types of scanning. So Nmap is a good one. You can point Nmap to a specific port and see if you get responses for it. And there's other tools like that too. You'll probably discover in the class and the labs that you can use for specifically looking for responses back from a port itself. So that might also look at that. There's some examples here of capturing hashes. That's a huge one. If you can get hashes back, both websites, take the hash, use something like Burp Suite. Even if you have Burp Suite, just the community edition, there's a decoder in there, and you can paste it and see what comes of it. It's possible they never assume someone's going to decode the hash. There could be more information in that hash. Again, a lot of times you might find yourself coming up to a dead end, but it's worth the look. So, exploiting SNMPs we go and look at. What versions are running? Of course, common service attacks. FTP, of course, multiple FTP servers. SSH, if SSH is open. Realize that root is usually blocked. By good practice, it's usually blocked. If it's not, again, that would be, even if you can't get an attack in, but the root username is taken, it's possible that will come back as a suggestion for better Kubernetes to never allow remote root access. What you do is, best practice is only allow a non-root user to come in with usually a really long password or multi-factor authentication, or even a non-password solution, which of course is using SSH known host set up there, and then having to sudo or su become root with a very strong password. So look for those slight things that can be improved upon. It might not be a full a full breach, but it could be something you put in your notes that could be of a benefit to your client. Again, we are white hat hackers. You're ethical, and so sometimes the small stuff like that might be of value. Wireless, don't think about that. Don't forget about that. Maybe Wi-Fi. They have the best web app defenses in the world, but their Wi-Fi has an open guest network that's not properly subnetted. So never assume everything is secure. But you can look at other ways of attacking this. Evil twins, DAuth attacks, Aircrack NG, Kismet, and Wi-Fi. So look at that. Bluetooth. Definitely look for this. You have to be a lot closer, of course. This is going to be possibly be on site. Might be even part of a physical pen test. Now it could be you don't need to come in covertly. You can say I'm going to walk around and do a sort of a Wi-Fi scan, and look for any ways of Bluetooth open on a device that could be a possible Bluetooth for maybe blue snarfing, things like that. Another thing to look for too is don't use just to look at Wi-Fi access, the current access SSIDs being broadcast. Look for hidden SSIDs. Sometimes we have groups within a company that will set up their own Wi-Fi network, and it's not to be malicious. It's just a lot of times they don't get it from IT. They're not support, and they just usually call this rogue networking or dark, their own version of just their own one-off networking, and they might set it up unsecurely. So RFID is another one that's really going to be close, but it's possible RFID tags is one thing that you maybe look at, and that can be part of a physical pen test. Again, be very careful with physical pen testing, especially if it involves you having to somehow, covertly break into or get into your client site. That should all be covered under contracts. You should have mitigations in place. But it is possible, even just as a lighter fare, that would be just to sort of do a walkthrough and see, spot things that you think are, and one of those could be, the ability to RFID clone those tags. So think of all the different aspects when it comes to your actual network vulnerabilities. So it's more than just internet-based. We are looking at, of course, on-site pen testing. Sometimes other wireless networks, things like that. So look at the whole big picture, and don't forget your understand your ports and services, and realize you're going to be going back with a lot of these, and doing some recon and/or research here. So, anyways, that should wrap it up for this. And again, I will do a separate demo video, and we'll probably look at. When I get my notes here, maybe we'll look at maybe look at Hydra. Use Hydra in an attack, and we'll maybe look at using Harmitage, things like that. So different tools we can bring to bear against a weak network service. Anyways, thank you for watching, and take care.